Gospel, we really pick up where we left off last week, with Jesus trying to answer this question for the people of how he is going to supply for their needs. How he is that he's going to give them that rest that they so desire. But we remember from last week there's this tension, because Jesus has this plan of how he's going to give them that rest by simply having the people being with him so that they're no longer separated from him. But the people have their own expectations, their own idea of how the Lord is going to provide for him. They're so focused on what he can do for them in this world by providing them their food for each day and from freeing them from the Romans. They're expecting something on this level, on this world, where Jesus has a much bigger plan in mind. And everything he did last week and everything he did this week in the readings and the Gospels is for this point, to help move their minds away from their own expectation, their own idea of how God is supposed to provide for them. And this is why we see Jesus do everything that he did and say everything that he said. I mean, if we notice between this week and last week, Jesus is moving around a lot. He goes from one side of the lake, the Sea of Galilee, to the other, out to the mountains and back to the other sea, all within a day. And this is with a great crowd of over 5,000 people behind him. People who eagerly want to be with him, who were literally last week eating out of his hands. They were all right there. They all wanted to follow Jesus. They all wanted to be with him. But Jesus moves. And why? He does it because, again, they don't understand what he's doing. They only see what Jesus doing what they want him to do. And they miss the deeper level that what the rest they want, the needs that they need to be met, are going to be fulfilled by being with Jesus. So Jesus leaves, he moves so that they might come and follow after him, that they might come to be with him again and realize that it is being with Jesus that's the key. But once again, the people miss it. They get caught up in their own ideas, and Jesus calls them out for this, calls them out for really just expecting him to give them exactly what they want in this world. And this is where this whole chapter of John starts to shift. It starts shifting because Jesus is starting to reveal that plan he has, that plan for providing for everyone's needs, to give them that rest that they desire, to merely make them happy. And he starts to reveal this to the Jews, but once again, surprise, surprise, they hear only what they want to hear. They hear their own expectations of how God is going to act again. They hear, wait, you're sent by God? It means you're that Messiah person who's going to come free us from the Romans. And they ask him for a sign to confirm this. They ask him for that sign that their fathers received in the desert once they were freed from Egypt so many years ago, for that sign of manna, bread from heaven. And it's a good sign to ask for, because it means so much to the people. Not only does it show that God cares for his people, but it also shows his faithfulness. That day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, God provided for the needs of his people every day, giving them just enough that they would have enough strength to take that next step to get to that land that he promised them, that place of rest and fulfillment that they desired. It was enough to get them there for that next step. And it was that sign that God was always with them, always doing what needed to be done to get them to where they wanted to go. But as good of a sign this is, Jesus wants to work at something deeper. He wants them to have something better. Because basically what the Jews are wanting in this is, we just want enough to get by, enough to be comfortable in this world, to have a decent life here. They're basically settling for a 6 or 7 level of happiness. And it's like, that's good enough for us. It could be better, yeah, sure, but it could be a lot worse. Like, 6, 7 sounds all right to me. We'll settle there. And how often are we in that same boat, where we're willing just to settle for a lower level of happiness so long as, things are all right, they're comfortable, I'll stay there. But Jesus isn't about the 6 or a 7. He's not for a lower level of happiness. He's going for that 10 or nothing else. And this is where that shift comes. Because he's willing to give himself as the key to this happiness, as a key of what is going to fulfill us. He's making himself this new bread come down from heaven, where by being with him, he'll give us just enough, just that strength to go with him day after day to get us to where we need to go. He's willing to go and work at this symptom, not at the symptoms of our discomfort, but at that deep root of what's actually wrong. That we have been separated in big ways and small ways from God. And it's that separation, us being apart from God, that has caused all of this dissatisfaction, all of this discomfort, all of this longing for something else. This is where this restlessness that we need our needs met comes from. And Jesus proposes himself as the cure for that ailment, that by being with him, this rest will finally be found. Beautiful example of this past week when we were doing prayers and actions here in the parish, while we were going out with the high schoolers and working on people's houses in 100-degree heat, doing some rather hard labor by hand of either doing some demo work or, as one lady put it, pulling up some big weeds and small trees, while at the same time living here and sleeping in the parish hall and getting very little sleep while we're at it. During this a kid that showed up, not Catholic, never really been a part of the church, never really been a part of this community. But we went and helped his grandmother, and he started joining with us, working with us, spending the time with us in prayer and in actions. And he made the observation, he made this comment that these 2 days working with you all, these 2 days being here at the church and in service, were the happiest he'd ever been in his life. That despite the work, despite the heat, despite the lack of sleep, he was happier than ever. And this wasn't because he was comfortable. Just ask Sydney, Amara, or Izzy, there was nothing comfortable about last week. Nothing at all. There's a reason Father Mike wasn't out there with us. But the important thing there is Jesus was there. Jesus was there. He called that kid and all the other kids who participated, he called them there. And they followed after him. And that's where that joy came from. That's where that peace, that's where that rest came from. By being with Jesus. And Jesus doesn't promise us comfort, but he does promise us peace and joy. If we look so much where he's calling us out into the desert. By my estimation, the Jews spending their time in the desert, not a fun experience, not comfortable. But God provided for them day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year in that period. And he promises to do the same for us. As many of you know, this is my last weekend out here in Rice County, out in the parish, and I'll be honest with you, I don't want to leave. If you could sign me up to stay here all year, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But the Lord is calling me elsewhere. He's calling me to follow him out to that dark and desolate land called Missouri. To a place that I know will be full of difficulties, full of disappointment, full of trials. But that is where he wants me to follow after him. And it is in that place where he's promising to fulfill my desires, to give me the joy, to give me that rest. And yes, though it will be a difficult journey there, he will be there. And that's where that rest and joy that I so desire will be. And he promises the exact same thing for each and every one of us. But we have to go after him into that desert. That might look like doing a little more work to reclaim Sunday. That might mean getting involved in all the many things that are going on in this parish, like the Bible studies or all the various other plans that Father Michael's concocted. But it's going after him, leaving that place of comfort, leaving that familiarity of work and sports, school, that daily routine of our lives, and trying something new and being with Jesus in a new way. That's the key. That's that way we'll find what we're longing for. That joy that we so desire, that ability to get us beyond that, relatively decent 6 or 7 and get us to that 10. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. But by being with Jesus, we'll get what we finally want, what we desire at such a deep level, what we need more than anything else. Jesus is on the move once again, calling us out after him, to leave that place of comfort and to come to him where he will provide for us. The question we have to ask ourselves, are we going to follow him? Are we going to go out into the desert to find Jesus, to let him provide for us? Or are we going to stay in that comfortable spot we've always been in and stay the same? This is the question we have to answer. Are we going to move with Jesus? Because if we do, then that desire, that rest that we so crave, those needs that we need fulfill, will finally be met. And we'll have a joy that we could never imagine, that we can't find anywhere else.